the election to do so with maximum discipline and in compliance with the joint rules of Parliament. We as EFF MPs correctly and decisively raised some of the issues that require immediate intervention and attention. We as members of Parliament are permitted to absolute freedom of speech and to protest in Parliament in terms of Section 58 of the Constitution. It is not true that EFF members of Parliament posed any physical threat to anyone in Parliament, not even Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. We have a constitutional protection to voice our opinions and can do that in whatever form we deem suitable. We also take note that in the process of the police service evicting members of Parliament, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula said "animal out," which was in reference to EFF members of Parliament. Referring to members of Parliament as animals is against the rules of the National Assembly and altogether unacceptable. We will therefore be reporting the Speaker to the Rules Committee of Parliament and will, as a matter of agency, table a motion of no confidence against the Speaker for referring to members of Parliament as animals. The Speaker must know that from now onwards, she has declared a war against the EFF members of Parliament for referring to us as animals and will treat her accordingly. What transpired in Parliament is an illustration that South Africa has degenerated into a dictatorship where the rule of law is not respected and applied. Many laws and precedences have emphasized on the sanctity of separation of powers. It is now evident that Mr. Ramaphosa has no respect for the separation of powers and has violently undermined the autonomy of Parliament. In response, it is now evident that SAPS brought its elite unit to Parliament with firearms to intimidate MPs, a phenomenon and practice that is not allowed anywhere in the world. There must never ever be demonstration of guns in Parliament because such will erode the foundation of our democratic culture and engagement and will most definitely intimidate and scare off members of Parliament from meaningful participation. The invasion of Parliament by members of the SAPS with firearms is a direct violation of both domestic and international rules and principles of how parliamentarians and parliaments should be conducted. In the process of unlawfully invading Parliament, the SAPS harassed members of the media through physical violence and intimidation. This conduct goes against the South Africa's constitutional democracy and values. The illegal invasion of Parliament by SAPS did not only violate members' constitutional privilege to freedom of speech as guaranteed under Section 58, subsection 1 of the Constitution. They have also undermined the Western Cape High Court judgment in the matter between the Democratic Alliance and the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces and the government, case number 2792/2015, which led to the amendment of the rules to make it clear that only parliamentary protection services will deal with conduct of members in the chamber and not security services as defined by Section 199 of the Constitution. We made these changes to the rules because to allow defense force, police service and any intelligence into Parliament chambers will grossly render Section 58 of the Constitution null and void and undermine members of Parliament freedom of speech, which is the foundation and cornerstone of our democracy. Hence, Rule 61 of the Assembly states that the Sergeant at Arms must arrange with the Parliamentary Protection Services for the removal of any person that is deemed to be disrupting proceedings and not security services. The usage of the police inside Parliament is unconstitutional as a 2016 Constitutional Court judgment in a case brought by the DA against the Speaker of Parliament, Madlanga said, I open quote, Parliament is also entrusted with onerous task of overseeing the executive. Tyrannical rule is usually at the hands of the executive, not least because it exercises control over the police and army, two instruments often used to prop up the tyrant through means like arrest, detention, torture, and execution. Even in a democracy, one cannot discount the temptation of the improper use of the state organs to further the interest of some within the executive. Needless to say, for Parliament properly to exercise its oversight function over the executive, it must operate in an environment that guarantees members freedom from arrest, detention, prosecution, or harassment of whatever nature. Absent this freedom, Parliament may be cowed, with result that oversight over the executive may be illusory. We therefore have, after thorough legal consultation, decided to write to the Speaker of Parliament to apologize and withdraw that she allowed members of the SAPS to invade Parliament. We additionally demand that the Speaker and the Parliamentary Protection Services to condemn and distance themselves from unlawful eviction of members of Parliament from the precinct without due procedure. Rule 14 GA of Joint Rules of Parliament sets out clear procedures for removal of members from chamber. The rules state: 1. If a member refuses to leave the chamber when ordered to do so by the presiding officer, in terms of Rule 70 or 71, the presiding officer must instruct the Sergeant-at-Arms to remove the member from the chamber and the precinct of Parliament forthwith. In 2, if the Sergeant-at-Arms is unable in person to effect the removal of the member, the presiding officer may call upon the Parliamentary Protection Services to assist in removing the member from the chamber and the precinct of Parliament. The standard operating procedure as agreed by the Joint Rules Committee, specifying that only the Parliamentary Protection Services personnel enter the chamber upon the instruction of the presiding officer and proceed to remove the member concerned under the direction of the Sergeant-at-Arms. None of these clearly stipulated rules and procedures were followed as the Speaker allowed the rules and procedures of Parliament to be undermined by illegal invasion of the chamber by the security services. The Speaker is commanded to withdraw all these weapons and lawful practices, or will be left with no choice but to approach the court to declare her decision and conduct unlawful. The people of South Africa have on several occasions and through different channels and platforms raised legitimate concerns about the sitting government, and this includes through elections. In the 2021 local government elections, majority of voters in South Africa rejected the ANC and yet continues with the arrogance and intolerance it is known for when not challenged by a formidable force such as EFF. South Africa, we are in a crisis. There is no electricity and there is no plan to bring back electricity. The foolishly conceptualized Ministry of Electricity must be rejected with contempt because South Africa has always had a ministry responsible for electricity. And despite several warnings about the incumbent, Cyril Ramaphosa decided to retain the same minister on the behest and for the benefit of the white capitalist establishment. South Africa, we are in a crisis of unmanageable levels of gender-based violence. We don't have jobs. We don't have dependable water supply. We don't have anything. Black men, you are on your own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commander-in-Chief. We will now take a round of questions to engage the first statement as read by the President of the EFF. We'll be taking 2 rounds. So I'll take the first round. You'll be number 1. Is there number 2? You'll be number 2. You'll be number 3. Let's go with those first 3 hands for now. Number 1, you can switch on your mic and then indicate what media house you're from and your name.
My name is Mulilani from SABC. Firstly, how much time are you going to give the Speaker to respond to your demand for her to withdraw or apologize about calling the security services to remove the EFF MPs? And the second one, do you not think that you took it too far by going on stage when you were protesting, given that perhaps maybe the VIP protection officers of the president might have seen a threat in that? Thanks.
Number 2.
Thank you, Jason Felix, News 24. Mr. Malema, just 2 questions. The Minister of Police said that the counter-assault team and the VIP protectors were merely there to protect the president and that they did a good job and he was proud of them. What's your view on that? And then secondly, can we expect any court proceedings from the EFF? Maybe I should ask, how soon can we expect any court proceedings from the EFF regarding the your ejection of the EFF MPs? Thank you.
Number 3.
Can you use that one?
Good day, Lisa Gatanya from the Mailing Guardian. Just 3 questions from me, Mr. Malema. Number 1, you say that the National Assembly Speaker has declared herself an enemy of the EFF and she will now be treated, you will now treat her accordingly. What do you mean by that? Your view or your reaction to the State of the Nation address holistically, what did you take out of that? If you could just give us your own reaction as the EFF in terms of what you heard from the President. In terms of the new Ministry of Electricity, you said that you reject the new ministry with contempt. You talk about Mr. Pravin Gordhan or that ministry. Are you against the ministry itself, or are you against the decision by the President to allow the Minister Gordhan, to still continue to be the shareholder in terms of Eskom? Thank you.
Over to you, President.
Thank you very much. The Speaker will get 48 hours upon receiving our letter to publicly withdraw and apologize. And she should do so with the protection services by distancing themselves from the act of the security services, and they should do so in a form of a press conference. Failure to do so within 48 hours, we will approach the Constitutional Court directly, because at the level where we are, we think that these matters deal directly with the Constitution and do not need other lower courts to deal with these matters. So it enters both the time and the issue of when should the Speaker withdraw that. That's what you guys are going to do in producing spoiled leadership, because there is nothing too far. The drafters of this statement, ordinarily, if they were listening to us when we were speaking, I said to them, you ought to put in this statement that the President, the only place where he doesn't have protectors around him is in Parliament. I asked them to put it here. Why should they put it in this statement? Because we ought to educate in the process. But who are you talking to? Talking to yourself. You educate in the process. The President, anywhere in this country and in the world, by the way, the only time the President does not have protectors is in this Parliament. He enters, sits amongst members of Parliament. So why should they not be a threat when they are sitting with him and then become a threat when they go to him when he's on stage? What difference does it make? It is the same members. And when we are seated with him at the floor of the chamber there, he can't see our hands. No one can see our hands. They are not sure if seated next to him I've got a knife or I've got a gun. But on the stage, my hands were visible, holding a placard. Since when holding a placard in a peaceful manner constitute a threat? Because everywhere else where you are suspected to be a threat, you are asked to raise your hands where we can see them. My hands were visible with a placard. If anything, this was less than pay back the money. Because this was peaceful, there was no singing, there was just going to be a standing on the stage, silently carrying a placard. The President would have proceeded to address in the presence of protest. How is that taking far? Because you are now no longer talking the Constitution. You are talking feelings. So you ought to appreciate that the Constitution allows that. The Constitution encourages a peaceful protest, which is what we did. Secondly, we get removed from Parliament. I'm sitting there, I spoke. After speaking, I sat down. From there, I never spoke again. My name gets read out. And then other colleagues' names are read out. From there, we are told, leave the house. But go backward and check what happened to Zungula. Zungula was warned 3 times. He was even told that I warned you 3 times. I called you 3 times. And because you did not comply, I'm now going to ask you to leave the house. What is the difference between me and Zungula? Why am I not being called 3 times? Why am I not being told what is my offense? It doesn't matter how impatient you are. It doesn't matter how angry you are. Follow the rules. The rules require her to call me like she did and then ask me to stand. And then she addresses me. Here is your offense. Withdraw this. Failure to do that, call me 3 times and then release me from the house. If I refuse, call the sergeant at arms. If I defy the sergeant at arms, then call the protection services. None of that happened. All of us were removed. At least our names were called. Even though procedure was not followed, then we're removed. The rest of our members were removed from the house without their names being called, without the speaker giving an instruction that those members must be removed. There is a video of a member of the EFF being removed from the seats. He's not on the stage. She's on the seats. She's carrying a placard on the seat. She gets removed. There's no order on her that so and so, you must be removed. So the security protection services, they did as they wish, outside the rules of Parliament, without members of Parliament being protected by the Speaker. So there is nothing that we did which is taking it overboard. The question should be, is that which you did within the Constitution and the rules of Parliament? If the answer is yes, it's sufficient. How anyone feels is his or her own baby to feed Malta Bella. The law is very difficult, doesn't work on how you feel. The Speaker came predetermined, very angry. What did Zungula do to be chased out? Zungula, you can see his name was kept somewhere special. It was clear he's going to be evicted. When we were raising hands, that other table staff guy took a paper to the Speaker. And the Speaker said, oh, sorry, I hear Honorable Zungula's hand is up. He fell into the trap. Honorable Zungula's hand was up with the hands of all of us. But Zungula was given special attention. Without listening to him, they went for him. Because use Zungula as an example so that the rest can be intimidated. Secondly, why do you open Parliament with silent prayer and meditation? Immediately into Parliament, read the rules. If you didn't come with a predetermined agenda to intimidate people, no one has done anything. There is no need for reading of the rules. You just open Parliament straight into the rules. If you do this, this was going to happen. You came to Parliament angry and with a predetermined agenda and not ready to listen to anyone. The President requires no protection in Parliament. I will never, and the President knows that himself, that I will never harm him. Because you ought to look at, between the two, who is the most powerful? I've got no tools to harm the state. The President is more powerful than me. So you can't look at me and look at the President and say, this guy constitutes a danger to the President. The President does not belong here. This is my workplace here. I work here. I've got the right to be here and be anywhere in this precinct. I work here. The President doesn't work here. How do you protect a visitor over the workers of this place? So the counter-assault team went overboard. Look at what happens. There is a man who enters the stage and stands in front of the president. He's wearing a face mask. Till today, no one knows who's that man. Number two, the counter-assault team, colleagues, is carrying guns inside Parliament on the stage. That stage is highly contested, highly politicized stage. The counter-assault team member can be triggered for whatever reason and shoot members of Parliament. Why are the guns allowed inside Parliament? That's what all of us should be asking. Because the protection of the president has got nothing with touching me. Why are they touching me? If they are protecting the president, they were supposed to go and build a wall around the president and wait for me until I approach and want to break that wall. No, they don't protect the president. They come to me. That's not the protection of the president. It's a harassment of members of Parliament. They were supposed to build a wall around the president, not come to me. They come to me. I went on stage. Immediately I was on top of the stage. I'm carrying a placard. Members of the EFF come on the stage. They carry the placard. They are nowhere close to the president. So why does Becky say, no, they did well and then he's praising them? Becky is singing for supper. Cabinet reshuffle is imminent, and that's why he's doing the most stupid things. Semi-illiterate minister of police who knows nothing except to just go around saying a lot of nothing which results in no results. The GBV is high. The levels of crime are too high. The only thing he can praise is harassment of colleagues in Parliament. He's a certified fool. He's a stupid. No member, self-respecting member of Parliament or a minister should celebrate what those members of police did inside there. The minister, when we say she's an enemy, we said in our statement, the speaker, she must, we are going to put a motion of no confidence in her. She's the most impatient speaker. She's the most irresponsible speaker. Yesterday when she said she was calling security, she removes us and then they tell her you need to cure this thing because the security came without your instruction. In curing that, she makes it worse. She said South African security forces come inside, meaning she was calling the army to come inside. Because she didn't specify which security forces she's talking about. South African security forces come inside. She knew that those police came inside without their permission. That's why even the rules she read at the end of the day, when the president finished, still says those police can come in when there is danger to life, when there is a serious disruption that is a threat to life or damage to property. None of the things that she read at the end existed when the security forces entered Parliament. So she knew that those people were out of line and she had to do something to try and cure that anomaly that occurred in that Parliament. And it's not curable except to accept it and take full responsibility that that act was unconstitutional. Well, our reaction to non-existing SONA really is the electricity minister, which is not necessary. What is this minister is going to do, which Praveen didn't do or was required to do? Because Praveen, in that state-owned enterprise arrangement, could have been told that whatever you do, prioritize ESCOM. It's as simple as that. Now, they are fighting with Gwede because his handlers don't want Gwede. And the conference of the ANC said, energy must go to Gwede. Gwede is my friend. He defended me on Pala Pala. He saved my second term. And there is this guy who's imposed on me by capital. Is caught between a wall and a hard place. So he's got no way out. He says, no, let me create a ministry of electricity and put that ministry in my office. Who's going to be that minister? Because you look at all of them, there is no single one of them with the capacity to can end load shedding in South Africa. Not a single one of them. So, colleagues, Pravin should have been removed. If the problem emanates from the incapacity of Pravin, that's why we are taking this entity from him and creating a completely new ministry, it's because Pravin failed. Why should you keep him? Whether as a shareholder or whatever is immaterial, Pravin should have been removed. He qualifies to be no minister at all. It's not only Eskom. Look at Transnet. Look at Dinel. Where is SAA? All of this mess under Pravin. So Pravin deserves not to be a minister at all. So our issue is both with Pravin and the new ministry. That the new ministry is actually created with an intention to be seen to be doing something. But that thing will not result in anything except to create a job for another cadre. A state of disaster to do what? It is the state of disaster. It means it's time to eat. That's why when he declared the state of disaster, there was a overwhelming clapping of hands. That is the only thing that received the loudest clapping, because they all knew the type of PPE arrangement is coming back. We are going to procure without following the procedure. So the ANC is going to steal more for what? For purposes of elections. Because next year we are going to elections and they need resources, and the research everywhere shows that these people are going to go below 35%, and as a result they will need maximum resources to try and campaign to regain the ground. That's where we are. And there is no any other state of the nation that deserves our response. We will give our comprehensive response when we debate next week inside Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, President. We'll take the second and last round of hands. You'll be number one. There's only one hand for the second round. Number two. Is there number three? It's the last round. Those are the last two hands. Number one.
Okay, Mr. Malema, you...
Introduction.
Oh, sorry. My name is Joseph Musia. I work for SABC Radio. Mr. Malema, you announced well before the president spoke that you are not going to, as the EFF allow you to speak because of whatever gripe you have with him. And you declared that, and you spoke about people came with a predetermined agenda, and that was your predetermined agenda to make sure that he doesn't speak. So as a result, you would be then expect that the Parliament itself would have its response to that agenda, which is to say they will make sure that the president speaks in spite of what you say. So both sides in this case then had a predetermined agenda. So you can't accuse one side and not your side, which you declared yourself.
Number two.
Just for clarity, Mr. Malema, in terms of the state of disaster, what action, will you take any actions? The DA has said that they're going to court. Is there any action that you will be taking, given that you find that, or you surmise that it will be a looting spree for the ANC?
Thank you very much. We are going to make sure that we monitor closely the implementation of a state of disaster, and will ensure that any possible corrupt activity, it is exposed, it is challenged, and will wait for them to issue the final details of what is the state of the disaster entail. Once that has been announced, we'll make sure that if it's not in line with the constitution, it is challenged. If it is in line with the constitution, we monitor its implementation to avoid possible looting by the ANC cadres. My brother, it's like saying to me, the judge can come to court with a predetermined agenda. The speaker, and that's what you should uphold, the speaker must always be neutral. I am a political party. I have to come up with a predetermined agenda. We all have predetermined agendas here. That's why we are here. Our predetermined agendas are our manifestos. But the speaker is like a judge. She has no luxury of coming with a predetermined agenda. She must not listen to the noises that are being made outside Parliament. She must enter Parliament with that objectivity, with that sober mind, and with an intention to listen to everyone. It doesn't matter whether you like them or not. Then from there, as and when matters get raised in Parliament, look at what the rules say and respond to those matters accordingly. But if the SABC is going to allow the speaker to come with a predetermined agenda, you are going to have Zungula removed for doing nothing by just being Zungula. You are going to have violence that we have seen. We are going to have a situation where counter-assault team is allowed in Parliament behind the stage, hiding behind the curtains. That is your predetermined agenda that you are saying it must be allowed by Parliament. It can't be. You cannot equate a political party's attitude to be the same as that of Parliament. Parliament has got a duty at all times to rise above, and that is the duty of the speaker. The speaker is almost like a judge. The judge, you can say all manner of things. Remember, we said to you, if she doesn't withdraw, we're going to court. That court, we're going to the Constitutional Court. Inside there were two judges from the Constitutional Court, the Chief Justice and the Deputy Chief Justice. Effectively, they were witnesses to what happened inside there. But they can't allow that noise which was made there and all of that to blind them from what the law says. When it comes to the application of the law, they are going to forget that they were inside there. They may have been the most irritated of what was happening there. Their emotions might have been so high. What are they doing to this guy? He's a nice guy. But at the end of the day, when they come to the application of the law, they are going to have to put aside their feelings and answer the question, what does the law say on this matter, despite how I'm feeling? And that's what the speaker is expected to do. What does the rules of Parliament say? Because if you come with predetermined agenda, you're going to call people's names and say, all of you, out. And then when they ask you tomorrow, but you didn't tell us what we did. You didn't warn us. You didn't call us 3 times. You're like, oh yeah, predetermined agenda is bound to destroy this Parliament and fail the people of South Africa. Parliament cannot have, the speaker cannot have a predetermined agenda. We make our intentions very clear. And our intentions are not unconstitutional, are not outside the rules of law, the rules of Parliament. I stood up there, she said, we are here to do one thing only, and that thing is to listen to the president. And I said to her, you are wrong. The founders of this Parliament will not have inserted the point of order if the duty of all of us here on such occasion is to just come and sit. So you are wrong to say the only role all of you play here is to bring your ears. And she realized she was wrong. That's why those things are there. That gathering of yesterday is governed by rules. And in those rules, point of privilege, point of order was allowed. But look at how we get treated. No one is going to speak here. No one is going to raise his hand here. There's not going to be any point of order anymore. If you continue, I'm going to remove you. Members of parliament say point of order, point of order, point of order. Then she reads our names because she said no one must do that. Then she says to us, go. We violently get removed. When they reconvene after 10 minutes adjournment, Steenhuisen raises his hand. He's allowed to speak. After she said, no one is going to speak, and we get removed for speaking after she said, you can't speak. Steenhuisen then raises a hand, allowed to speak. We need to ask the question, what is the difference between Malema and Steenhuisen? You'll answer that question on your own. What is the difference? We all know what is the difference. Malema is black, Steenhuisen is white. There are rules for white people, there are rules for black people. And the ANC people anyway, historically, they've always been very scared of white people. There is no way her own DNA will allow her to stop a white man from speaking. No ways. Even after she ruled, Steenhuisen stood up, Steenhuisen was allowed to speak. Her partisan attitude allowed German Cat to speak. German Cat spoke there. What is German Cat's name? Hadebe. Hadebe spoke without quoting the rule. He spoke. And Hadebe was not taken out of the house because he comes from the same party with her. Spoke, we said to her, under which rule is Hadebe standing up? Hadebe was not removed. Talk of a predetermined agenda. We're going to hit the EFF, we're going to hit the Zungula ATM, and our own will be protected irrespective of whether they are following the rules or not. This parliament has to be a fair place, and the courts have made pronouncement about that even before, that if the freedom of speech, if members of parliament are not protected, we can forget about holding the executive accountable. But let me tell you, we are not shaken. If we are asked to do it again tomorrow, we'll repeat it. And that is the beginning and the build-up towards the shutdown of South Africa on the 20th of March. We will never stop until Cyril Ramaphosa steps down as a president of this country. There is nothing personal between us and Cyril Ramaphosa. We politically, fundamentally disagree with him. And we will do everything in our power to make sure that he's removed from office and a new government is restored that will restore the dignity of our people, bring back electricity, create jobs for our people, defeat GBV, arrest Ramaphosa for Phala. What we are doing to Ramaphosa is what we did to Zuma about Nkandla, about pay back the money. It can be rules for Zuma and different rules for Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa's Phala will never die. The sooner the ANC deals with that matter, the better. Because if they think that he's going to die and be swept under the carpet, then what they saw yesterday is going to be a picnic. We are going to fight until Ramaphosa is held accountable by this parliament. We don't want to be criticized by Constitutional Court. We don't want to be criticized by another Zondo Commission on how parliament allowed the mess and the deterioration to happen. We will take it up in the courts. We'll take it up in parliament like we did yesterday, and we'll take it up on the streets when we shut down South Africa on the 20th of March. Nothing will stop us. Not even that ugliest member of parliament called Bekitel can stop us from shutting down on the 20th of March. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commander-in-Chief. That brings an end to the EFF press briefing. Let us all meet on the streets on the 20th of March. Thank you, President.